Hello everyone, and welcome or welcome back. This is the Untangled Knitting Podcast, and my name is Lily. Hello everyone, I'm so happy to be here, to be back, and to be sharing about knitting with you all. This is the Untangled Knitting Podcast channel where I talk about my love for knitting and my joy in color and texture and all things fiber arts. So I'm very excited to be back today. It's been a super busy summer, and while I haven't gotten as much knitting done as I would have liked, I do have some fun things to share. So I'll get started. This is with what I'm wearing. This is my Time sweater. It's by Lily Kate Makes, and I was a tester for the pattern. This is such a fun knit to wear. I think I've worn it a lot more than I maybe expected to. It's really easy to throw on. It's warm, but also, as you can see, quite airy. And it's the kind of thing where it's really easy to wear, and then I realize, oh, I've got drama. And it's really, really been fun, a fun piece to have in my closet. I knit this out of, Juniper Moon Stargazer yarn, which is a really wonderful combination of silk and linen and merino. And I held that, I think the color was Arctic, yes, Arctic, and I held that alongside the Lichen and Lace mohair, which is marsh mohair they call it, and the color I used for that was Blue Lagoon. And so that's how we see kind of the moody kind of green moments in this, and it's knit at a really kind of larger gauge. I'm sure I talk about it a lot more in previous episodes, and I'll link down below to those where I go into more detail. But again, just a fun knit, maybe an unexpectedly summery knit. Even with the mohair, I don't find it too kind of hot or overwhelming. It's probably the really large ventilated sleeves and the low neckline as well. I cropped mine a bit, and it's just super comfy, cozy, and much easier to kind of style than you might expect for something that has such kind of a dramatic impact. So definitely, even if it's out of your comfort zone, I check out the hashtag too for the My Time sweater, and there's some really, really fun ones out there from other testers as well. And I do have some finished objects for you, but one I just realized I forgot to get off of the blocking mat. So 1 second, I'll be right back. I'm back. I'm slightly embarrassed too because there's someone, I'm filming this on my off day, but I didn't know that someone was going to be doing repairs in the house. And so my husband is downstairs with a repair person right now. And I think they can hear everything, so I'm a little bit like, it's okay, it's cool, this is just something that I do. So anyway, it's just one of those times where you realize that this is a little bit out there for other people potentially. So oh well. Anyway, I'm back and literally hot off the blocking board because this was outside drying. I have my Metamorphic sweater. So this I had finished basically the whole thing except for a sleeve, and it was just kind of floundering, and I'm so glad I finally finished it all off. I like it a lot more than I thought I would. When I was done with the body. When I was done with the body, I was kind of like, oh, I'm not so sure. So the gauge is really, okay, I should start at the very beginning. This is the Metamorphic Sweater by Andrea Mowry. It is knit in the Spincycle Yarns Metamorphic yarn, which is their recycled wool yarn. And it is really soft, really squishy, and it's a nice marl. I have the blue gray number 6, I believe, marl. And that is alternated with Spincycle's Dyed in the Wool, which I've used a ton of and I really like. But I knit this in a really different gauge than I've knit other Dyed in the Wool projects, with the exception of the Gr8 Gingham, which I'll talk more about for gauge issues again. But I knit this on a size 6 needle and it just feels so much better. I mean, the fabric is much nicer. I think I was so afraid of how loose my gauge can be that I've always been sizing down my needles to such an extent in order to get gauge that I wasn't paying as close attention to the fabric that I was creating and if I really enjoyed that fabric. And it turns out I like a more drapey fabric and I like the way that feels, and I think that I'm gonna wear this a ton as soon as fall comes. So it's a little bit wrinkled because it was drying outside, and I think a breeze must have blown it over a bit, so it dried with a bit of a crease on that side, but I'm really happy with it. I did do the tubular bind off on the rib at the bottom, but I decided not to on the sleeves, and I'm really glad I didn't, because the tubular bind off, I think I've gone into this before, but I don't find it as stretchy as other folks do. And I really prefer on my cuffs to have the Jenny's tubular super stretchy bind off rather, because I think that as someone who likes either a bracelet length sleeve or to kind of push them up, the tubular really slides around a lot more than Jenny's stretchy. And so Jenny's stretchy really does seem to come back to itself. So that's what I did with these cuffs. And now that I know how to do, and I'm not really intimidated by the tubular bind off, I feel like I'm just gonna do what works best for me. The other thing is, so this is the same 2x2 rib that Andrea Mowry has in her DRK everyday sweater, which I love and is probably one of my most worn knits. It's just a standard of the genre. But to do the tubular bind off with the 2x2 rib, you have to reorient your stitches. And frankly, I'm just not a fan. It's so fiddly and I don't think it looks that good. I mean, I did it on the bottom. It's fine, but it's kind of funky. Like it's not totally right. See, it has to jump a bit, so you don't get the same kind of full effect as a 1x1 rib. So yeah, kind of just felt like that wasn't worth it for the sleeves. So glad this is done. I think it's super effective. I love that center line down the front. And yeah, I just think I'm gonna wear it a bunch. And it's gonna be another kind of workhorse sweater. I have a gray linen dress. I think this will look really beautiful over, and then I'll just wear it with jeans out and about. So excited to have that done. And then I did it. I finished my champagne cardigan, which I'm really, really, really happy with. And I love it. I think that it's really something else. It feels very, very special. It's definitely the piece that I did the most, I feel like, kind of creativity wise. I brought a lot of myself to the piece because I basically made up my own gauge and really experimented with the fibers and the colors. I will admit, as I feel like everyone has admitted, this double knit button band situation, it was not fun. It was no fun. And it really kind of just, it was like I ran out of steam. as soon as I picked up to go all the way around and realized I was gonna have to knit back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, I just kind of, it broke me a little bit. And it just kind of sucked all the mojo out of the project for me. And then I realized that because my gauge, I was super happy with the body of the piece, but because of my gauge kind of edits, I was gonna have massive, massive, massive sleeves. Like the sleeves on this piece were basically going to be like this. And so because I had done this sweater, I was like, I don't want that. Even though this is a set-in sleeve, you know what I mean? Like the raglan was gonna go down, basically, it does go down like to my waist. And I have a bit of a high waist anyway. So I was really not sure what to do. And I just decided, okay, I'm not going to knit giant sleeves. And instead I Kitchenered together the bottom 10 stitches on either side of the sleeve on the bottom. So there's a kind of seam. Let me show you if I can. Yeah, it's not gorgeous. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's not stunning, but I'm really, really, really happy with the fit. So you can kind of see there is where I did it. And it rolls nicely. You can kind of check that out, I think. So it doesn't look terrible. I think it's pretty nice. Like that. Anyway, it works so well for me. It's just great. And yeah, I'm really tempted to actually just put it on right now. And so, again, that was going straight for the details, which again, I probably, sorry, shouldn't do that. This is the Champagne Cardigan by Petite Knits. It is my first Petite Knit pattern, and I'm very happy with it. I knit this with one strand of 100% camel from Pearl Soho, which was something just I've always wanted to work with. It is divine. It's also incredibly lightweight. I then paired that with the Verb for Keeping Warm in-house blend called Gather, which is also sublime. And I know they're my local, but still, if you're sleeping on a Verb for Keeping Warm, just check it out. Everything they do is so stunning. It's so considered. Their aesthetic is so beautiful, but it's also really open to experimentation and open to all these different kinds of use cases. And I think they're really authentically who they are. And I think I just feel really proud about being an East Bay knitter, and and having them be local is really wonderful. The color that I used is an undyed color called Dove, and it's really beautiful. It has a lot of the darker tones of the camel in it, but then it also picks up, here, let me show you a beautiful section. Oh yeah, right like that. You can see all the variation that it can pick up with the grays as well. And then I threw in a Knitting for Olive mohair, which I had also never used before. I have some mixed feelings about the Knitting for Olive mohair. The color is perfection. The color is called Mushroom Rose, and I adore it. It was exactly the thing I needed to marry these two colors together. And the three of them, I think, are just really special and make a really beautiful fabric. That said, it is so fluffy. It is fluff fest. Excuse me. See? It's probably because I breathed in a bunch of fluff just getting this up off the blocking boards. And I don't know if I've heard that it pills a bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if I see that in my future. Luckily I have my it's not here right now, my little electric gleaner, so I'm not afraid of a pill. But yeah, I wish, and I do realize too that I was more than slightly spoiled by a lot of the hand-dyed mohairs that I was using, which I think are also very sustainable mohairs, but they really hold on to that halo a bit tighter. And this one definitely lets go of more of its fluff. But I couldn't be more pleased with the whole approach and pattern. My buttons also, I'm quite chuffed with my button selection. These are from Shop Le Mercredi, one of my favorite places. Their haberdashery section is fantastic. They also have their own in-house yarn brand called Ampersand Fibers, which I haven't worked with, but looks really lovely. And they always just have the best buttons, man. So these are 100% natural shell buttons, and I think that they pick up the warm tones of the camel, but they're also they have kind of a cool undertone with their kind of gray as well. So very pleased with this. Can't wait to wear it. We'll probably be wearing it more often in San Francisco as I go back and forth to the city. And yeah, I love it. Look at that button band. Now that it's done, I'm quite proud of it, but it was a chore, man. It really sucked out my knitting mojo. So those are my two finished objects. Again, really happy to get both of those off the needles. And I guess, I should admit probably now that I did end up frogging something. So rather than complete it, I got fairly close to completing the Grow With Me cardi from the Knit Collage Knit Along. And first of all, I am a completist. I really, if I start something, I absolutely want to finish it. This is, I think, one of the few things I decided not to finish, and I made that decision because I think it was just way too heavy for a short sleeve garment or even a summertime garment for me, even a transitional season garment. And I loved the colors so much that I would like to make them into more of a jacket and to use the kaleidoscope pattern, which I really love and have wanted to make a kaleidoscope cardi for myself after making one for my daughter for Christmas. So I just said goodbye to that project. But it was not in vain. I'm so glad that I worked on it because I did learn brioche. I mean, I really feel confident in my brioche skills. I feel like making the brioche stitches in their heavyweight yarn also really helped me understand what was going on, the kind of physics of it, and how you were basically doing some double knitting, but all in the same time. And it also made it really, really fun for me to cast on my travel project. So if you watched my most recent episode, you would may remember that I was going on a trip, and I went to Germany for work and had a lot of plane and train and automobile knitting time. And so I was really excited because I got to bring along my satellite shawl. And this is my first real shawl. Oh, wrong side. My first real shawl, crescent shawl pattern. And I'm really, really into it. And I'm so proud of those brioche stitches, which look really great. And I have to credit the Knit Collage project for giving me the confidence to then do it in this very fine, almost lace weight yarn. So that was a kind of sad moment, also because I really do also credit the Knit Collage Knit Along from fall of 2021 for bringing me into the online knitting community, for getting me involved in knitting YouTube and kind of just opening me up to this whole community. So I credit them so much for that, and am really glad that I had that opportunity to learn, and also that I am keeping that fabulous yarn for a project that I know I'll get a lot of wear out of, and that will really be a beautiful addition to my wardrobe. So that gives me a good chance to talk about the satellite shawl. So the satellite shawl is done in these kind of wedges of alternating short rows and plain garter stitch and brioche, and all done with a really wonderful group of colors and textures. So what I did, this actually was originally a kit that I got at A Verb for Keeping Warm, which they put together with La Bien-Aimée. And this is the helix in the color, let me check, sorry. And it is very thin, the helix, Hagalia. And I do love it. And I think it's very on brand color for me. And I've paired it with her Kumo yarn. Kumo yarn. This is the color Avignon, which is a very beautiful dove grayish white, but it really walks the border of a warm or kind of warm to cool tones, which is perfect for yours truly. And I also have Winterfell, which is the really deep dark navy. And then instead of the bright red, which was supposed to be the third Kumo color, I am using A Verb for Keeping Warm's Soft Current in their naturally dyed colorway Topaz. And the dyes that go into making this color are logwood, kutch, madder, and fuse stick, which I think is pretty cool that they list all the materials that make these really special colors. So this was such a great thing to have on the plane. I obviously didn't bring, more than one skein of the helix, and was able to really get a lot of work done. And also I was able to pick it up and put it back down again fairly easily, which I really appreciated, because there were a lot of stops and starts and getting on and off buses to go to different places. And yeah, I'll talk a little bit more about my trip and some of the yarny goodness that I got to partake in a little bit later. But yes, this is the satellite shawl. And what should I do for I guess really, because I did frog my other piece, my only other real web is the Mac Daddy Gr8 Gingham. So last we spoke, I had polished off my sleeves. Hello. And I didn't even show you the body because I had just kind of barely cast it on, or I feel like I had done maybe like an inch or two. And now I'm almost done. I'm almost done with the body, which looks fairly short, which was concerning to me. And to be totally honest, I'm a bit concerned about this whole experiment. Mostly because I've been looking at what other people are doing and getting worried about that neckline. I'm not a funnel neck person, or if I am, I feel like the issue is, and I was watching a couple other podcasters talk about this as well, that it doesn't look like the funnel neck is on purpose. It's because I feel like with this, I'm knitting it at a slightly larger gauge than something that would stand up totally independently. And because I think that my main color has potentially a little bit more flexibility in drape than the one even in the knitters show that Jessie May shows in the pattern notes. I feel like it'll flop at the top. So I was approached by one of my favorite knitting people on the planet, and Jen is an amazing designer, and she's also a really, really smart modifier. It seems to me that she can take anything and translate the numbers for an individual. She really also has helped me think through what we think about and what we talk about when we think and talk about knitting for our bodies, and using our knitwear as a way to celebrate the bodies that we have, and also to own them in a really specific and I think kind of powerful way. So she got in touch with me on Instagram and let me know that she has a pretty amazing modifying worksheet for bottom-up raglans, and she asked if I would like to use that for my Gr8 Gingham, and if potentially she could come on the podcast and we could do a little workshop together. So I'm so excited about that. I am now powering through the last 3 repeats of this so that I can get Jen on the show. We can do a recording together and work this out in real time. And I think that not only will it create a garment that I'm really excited about wearing, but I think that, or I hope that it will give other people the tools to embrace this really, really beautiful pattern in a way that makes it work for more people and more bodies, and that people feel more confident wearing something they've put so much work into. Speaking of so much work, it looks not great, and I am catching all my floats, and it's still a little puckery, but because I did the hat and blocked that out and blocked it out so nicely, I'm really not worried about it. Maybe I'll worry about it later, but for the moment, I just want to get it done. And I think it really will kind of relax into itself and really snuggle into itself. So I've talked a lot about this piece, so forgive me for, again, just going straight to the details and not giving you the full download, but this is the Gr8 Gingham Raglan by Jessie May Designs. I am knitting it in Spincycles dyed in the wool in the colorway Cold Comfort, which is the color changing yarn, which goes from blue, grays, and pinks. And my main color, the solid color I'm using, is the Camilla Fiber Company in Chicory, and this is their Merino Sport. And it's 100% non-superwash merino. So yeah, that's what I'm working on really. Focusing on the Gr8 Gingham Raglan, and I did cast something new on, but I'm really excited about it because it's not for me. So that's pretty exciting. And so one of my dearest friends from college, she is just kind of an amazing all-around human being, and she is starting a new job very soon, and she had reached out in the spring because she was looking for a rainbow sweater, and that's all she said. She said, do you know any rainbow sweaters or anyone who could knit me a rainbow sweater? And I said, well, I could knit you a rainbow sweater. And I wondered if she counted this as a rainbow. And if you're a longtime viewer, you may remember this swatch. It's a swatch of a fade that I made using Wandering Flock, and her winter, I believe it's her winter collection or December release collection of DK superwash yarns. That's a hand-dyed yarn. And I paired it with sometimes her mohair, or if I couldn't find it, another mohair that I could find to match. And so luckily Yam said, yes, this counts as a rainbow. And so I'm really excited. I'm gonna knit up a simple raglan sweater in this fade for my dear friend. And I'm really excited about it. I wanna celebrate her and her accomplishments with this new position. And there's really nothing to show. It's like a ribbed collar right now. So don't worry about it. I'm starting with the teal. It's no big deal. But I am switching up the pattern I'm using. I was going to use the Espace Tricot kind of sweatshirt style pattern that they came out with, and then I'm getting influenced, my friends. I'm getting influenced left and right. And the grocery girls were going off on the lento, which looked pretty great. And so I went for it too. And then I think Gr8 made a lento. I think that was it, or maybe it was someone else. I think it was Gr8. Anyway, I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon and use the lento as kind of the recipe. I did, since I already have that swatch, I know I'm on gauge for it, and it does seem really flexible, so I think I'll be able to modify it and do it just kind of almost exactly for Yam's, my friend's measurements. So I'm very excited about that project. And then I know I shouldn't have done it. And I knew as I was like filling out the form, I was talking to myself going, don't do this, Lily, don't do this. But I signed up for another test knit. I'm really excited about it though. It's for Amy Shear, who, you know, We Are Not Worthy. She's really, really amazing. And the name of the pattern it's named after one of my favorite characters in literature. And I guess that's all the hint that I'll give you for the moment, but I think it's gonna be pretty great. I'm excited about it. Definitely excited. So that's what I'm working on now. And what else did I want to talk about? Oh, I do have some acquisitions from my trip, but one of the things that happened on my trip that I wanted to just kind of get off my chest, as it were, because I was like, who else would understand this? It's like, oh yeah, anybody who watches my podcast would probably understand this. So I feel like there's a lot of conversations about how we spend our time as knitters and slow knitting or really productive knitting, and you know, the price of yarn and inexpensive yarn or very expensive yarns, and making sure that things are accessible while at the same time celebrating indie dyers who are doing amazing work. And I had a pretty interesting experience when I was in Europe, and you know, I was there to visit a lot of the artists who I work with. I work for an art gallery, and those were really wonderful experiences. And I also went to different artisans' studios. So visited a really, really amazing ceramicist. In fact, I'd love to share with you some of the ceramics that I acquired from her. Those are being shipped over and taking quite some time. So that might be on a future podcast, but I'm very, very excited about them. They're super beautiful. And another studio we went to was a textile studio, incredibly beautiful, called Sususan. And it is based in Dusseldorf and run by a really wonderful person who comes from Japan and who has brought the Japanese shibori dyeing tradition to knitwear. And some of it's machine knit and some of the items are hand knit. And it is incredibly beautiful work, and it is also incredibly expensive. like wildly expensive. A machine knit sweater is close to or over $1,000 or euros, I think. And then the hand knit sweaters are going to be beyond that, if not double that. And I really want us to acknowledge that in order for someone to kind of adequately pay for the type of art and time and care that goes into these garments, I think, we're looking at a really high price point. And I just really feel, sorry, there's some going on. It's good because I was getting too serious. I just really feel like we should be honoring ourselves and honoring our hand knits and just acknowledging that what we spend our time making and how we are interacting with the kind of visual and artisan world is incredibly valuable. And it doesn't matter, I say at least, it doesn't matter what kind of yarn or what kind of needles or what you're using. The act of making and the techniques that people are using are absolutely high fashion and should be just completely revered and honored. And I don't know, I just feel like there's a kind of way in which we can look at that experience and say, yeah, there's a reason why, one of the sweaters that was at this shop had a double knit button band. And I had just finished my double knit button band. And as much sticker shock as I got, being at this designer's store, I also was like, that's right. Those button bands are a real chore. And they take a huge amount of time and knowledge and technique. And that's why it's there. And so there's a reason. And anyway, it was just kind of one of those moments where I also had a really good time like recognizing techniques, and I got to kind of nerd out on my own away from the group, which was kind of just a fun moment for me. And again, it was really just wonderful to see and respect and honor these artists and these artisans and what they're doing and making, and know that folks really admire that, and we should admire ourselves and give ourselves a little round of applause for that as well. And I guess that leads me to my acquisitions. I did not acquire any yarn in Dusseldorf. In the Rhineland, I was just completely booked. It was really wonderful and incredibly special. I'll be putting some photos and maybe a few little videos in at the end if you'd like to go along with me. And maybe I'll even put in a few photos of the artist studios if that's interesting for you all. There's some really, really special people, and they have some really amazing visions of the universe, and that's part of my role, is just to share that. So happy to do that. And yeah, I was just completely slammed that entire time. When I was in Berlin, I was there to support another one of our artists who was included in the biennial, and that was also pretty busy, but I was all over the city, and I was working with other people and had meetings, but I also had a few moments to myself. So I was able to go to Knit Over Berlin, which was recommended to me by some awesome listeners. And they also recommended Frida Fuchs, who has this really, really wonderful mohair. And I was really excited to get this. Stunning, just lovely. And it was a really sweet little shop, and there was a great, really cute knit moment happening, and adorable dogs, and it was just very, very sweet and pleasant, and I really could have done a lot of damage there, but I held myself back. It was also really fun because there was a satellite shawl. There was a sample of the satellite shawl up in the store, and so that was really fun and, you know, great to nerd out about, and just fun to see our community out and about. And then the next place I went was actually very close. It was called Knit, and they had a really nice selection of European yarns, lots and lots of Sannisgarn, lots and lots of Knitting for Olive, and then they also had their own house blend of yarn. And I saw this bright navy blue. It's definitely a navy, but it's really bright. And I thought it would be perfect for a hat for my papa, for my dad, who has the kind of head that needs to be kept warm. So I really loved it, and I wanted to support their yarn. It is 100% Australian wool, I believe, but I don't know the breed. It has a really, really lovely twist to it, and it's super, super soft, but I feel like it's well structured. Also, I think it'll be really nice for a hat. Won't be scratchy at all, but will be hard wearing. So good for an active person. And that was just a really sweet shop as well. It was very small, but they had a lot of different options, and it was very aesthetic. Everything was laid out by color, and it was really kind of poppy and really fun. So that was a great one too. And it was great to have my satellite shawl around to kind of go from place to place and always keeping me busy. And that's, I guess, where I am right now. And oh shoot, I did forget something else. I haven't cast it on yet, but I did say at a certain point, I believe, that I'm being influenced. I'm like fully under the influence right now. And I was watching a new to me podcast, Alexandra Garn. She's Swedish. So much fun. Love the pod. Big fan. And she just completed the Ingrid sweater. So I had mentioned, I believe, that I wanted to do a kind of chunky or textured white sweater with create one of those with my Nutidin. And I saw the Stephen West came out with a very nice textured top-down sweater that looked like it was just knits and pearls, but again, sections of texture in it. And I kind of just assumed I was going to do that, or a big cabled sweater. And I was really looking forward to doing that in the fall and having that be kind of a nice, bigger piece, and to do it in this beautiful snow Nutidin. And then I was watching Alexandra, and she just made the Ingrid sweater by Petite Knit, which I don't know why I didn't know about this sweater, but I did not know about this sweater. It looks fabulous. It looks really fun. And again, all over texture, just knits and pearls, top down. Apparently it uses German short rows. I love a German short row. I'm a German short row pro. Oh, I shouldn't say I'm a pro, but I dig them and I'm not bad at them. So I think I'm gonna do that. And I'm just wondering, has anybody seen it done in Nutidin? I didn't see anything on Ravelry, but I didn't spend a long time looking. So I'll go back and double check. But if anybody has a link to or knows of anyone who's made the Ingrid sweater by Petite Knit in Nutidin, I'd love to see it. Or if you have any other recommendations. Again, this is just right now a plan. I'm not casting this on yet. I'm not letting myself cast this on yet. But I'd also probably do it with a string of mohair. And I'm a little nervous about Knitting for Olive has a nice white, but oh, I love this. Look, there's a little sheepy bit. Hi, little sheepy bit. Oh, I love you, Nutidin. Anyway, sorry, I'm just talking to the fluff ball yarn here. Anyway, I was saying something, about white mohair. Favorite white mohairs? white mohairs that might go with a Nutiden? Anybody? Anybody? Let me know, Bueller, if you have any recommendations. And I'm pretty set on the Ingrid, but I could also, you know, I could be convinced there's another bigger textured thing you recommend. I gotta say, I kind of get the Petite Knit vibe after that champagne sweater. I think I do see it all the time, see her patterns all the time, but I don't know why I wasn't kind of immediately drawn to them. I think it's the name, because I am not petite, and so much of her aesthetic is about creating these large garments that accentuate how small she is, and that's awesome, but I feel like it isn't how I identify, and so I had to kind of get over that, and I think I am. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm, again, very, very interested in the Ingrid sweater. It looks beautiful, and it looks great on Alexandra. It looks great on everyone I've seen it on Ravelry. It looks boxy but nice, you know? That Volvo line just never gets old. Boxy but nice. And I think it's because it has more of that texture. Sorry, I'll put up a picture, sorry. Just like talking about this thing that's in my imagination. Anyway, you all are wonderful. I apologize for the rambling. Thank you for sticking with me. I'm sure I forgot a bunch of stuff that I'll have to do a quick follow-up on. And so next up though, I will be in touch with Jen, and I will get us hopefully on the calendar to do a talk about that Gr8 Gingham Raglan revamp. And I'm really excited about all this stuff, and I'm happy to be back talking with you all. Thank you, everyone. Such a joy, and I hope you keep putting yourself out into the world and inserting yourself with every stitch. Anyway, have a great summer, a great month, and I hope to talk to you very soon. Bye.
with leather shears.
Used
some other way they do things. They are gorgeous. You're right. Must make it better. The horse is good. I'm very happy with it. No,